What's up, guys? How's it going? Let me see. This chat isn't quite loading for me. Let me reload. There we go. How you guys doing today? Was so I put on the social medias to see what you guys wanted to check out today, and it seemed pretty overwhelming that you guys wanted me to get back to this castle painting. It was pretty much unanimous. Um, so, which is hard. It's really hard for me to do this because uh, it's been a couple weeks and you lose the momentum in a painting if you don't keep going with it, which is my bad. You know, it's something I shouldn't have stopped working on it. But once you stop, that's why I feel like when I'm doing matte paintings, I need to force myself to sit down to hit milestones in the matte painting so that when I walk away and when I want to come back, I have the next stage that I'm looking forward to. And when you leave in the middle of a stage, it makes it harder to want to come back to it. Which is exactly what I did with this painting, because like I was right in the middle of the texturing stage, and I didn't finish that up, and I should have just sat down and forced myself to. Um, but it's something that now we can come back to and finish that together. If you don't want to. No, 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 no. It's not a bad thing at all. Um, it's good. It's good to get a little pressure to jump back to it, because otherwise, left to my own devices, I'll just never finish this thing. And I think we should finish it because I think it'll be a cool painting. If it is your first time here and you missed everything, we built this castle out in 3D. We kit bashed it together using some parts. We brought it into Keyshot and we lit it, and now we have it in Photoshop, and now we're painting on top of it and adding some photo textures and stuff like that. And the idea is, after getting photo textures in there, then we'll have like a solid base to start playing with lighting and mood, and really start to detail this stuff out. Maybe we can add some firelights to the windows and stuff like that. Um, I'm gonna keep working on this today with you guys, but also at the end of our stream, I want to give you guys a little sneak peek of something I've been working on for the last couple months, that I hope you guys will like, and maybe some of you guys already know about it or see it coming. But either way, I haven't shown it to anyone, so you guys are going to be the first, and I'll do that at the end of the stream. So if you're super bored with me texturing this castle, just let me know and I'll do something else, but stick around. And let's dive into this. And it also, as always, ask questions and give me things to ramble on. Because left to my own devices, I'll just get lost in the painting and just be silent. And that's the last thing I want to do. It's a little tricky to, like, I'm still not used to streaming. And one of the tough things is I'm alone in a room talking to a microphone, and you don't get that feedback. So I'm relying on you guys to give me questions and to interact with me, so that I feel like I am not alone in a room just painting away. And we have Joe, who's going to be here helping out and funneling questions over, so I don't miss anything. But I'll try to keep an eye on the chat. So it's been a little while, so let me just take a look. This is one of the reasons I stay super organized with my PSDs as well, or at least try to, so we can quickly see what I was doing and how I was putting it together, and I can kind of mimic that. And then in here, stone textures, and let's just see what texture I was using. Cool. bet I have a smart object in here too, so that I can, yep, boom. So that I can line things up to perspective and do all that stuff. I didn't set up a perspective grid with this castle, which usually I would, but I think, again, we're working with limited time on these paintings because I'm really only have a couple hours to do a painting since we're only streaming for a little bit each week. So I'm really doing it more as if I was doing a concept, and kind of skipping a lot of the more tedious tasks that I would do in a full matte painting. I don't use layer comps. It's a question. Do you use layer comps in Photoshop? I don't. I just haven't found a place in my workflow where I needed it, honestly. And maybe there is something that I don't know about, and maybe you guys know a good reason to use them, but I just haven't found one before. If you guys do have a good reason to use them, let me know, because maybe there's something I'm missing that could speed me up or improve the workflow. But it's also like Photoshop has so many tools and everyone uses it differently. And I would say that I really only use a couple tools repeated over and over again. There's so much of Photoshop that I don't know about, or that as much as I've been using it for years and years and years, I'm still finding new things and always looking for, like, is there some tool that speeds up a part of my workflow? And a lot of the automated tools in Photoshop don't speed up my workflow. Like color matching, I've been trying that out a bit, but it just doesn't speed me up because the basic levels adjustments, it's just too fast for me. But that doesn't mean that there aren't others that would speed me up. There we go. I'll just duplicate this texture a little bit. We're just gonna lay this in first, and then I'll add the 3D render passes on top. What feature would you love to see in Photoshop? I have a couple that I would love for Photoshop to have. First is figure out the color management stuff. Like, get LUTs working actually well, and not this half-assed whatever it is now, because it sucks right now. And get with the times and let me work in 32-bit. It's so crazy that when you switch to 32-bit, you lose most of your tools. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Honestly, I think Nuke is one of the slickest softwares out there, and it's so fast, and it works. It handles colors really well. It lets you work 32-bit. It gives you all that range. It's really nice, and I wish Photoshop would get their act together and kind of look at the Foundry and see what they're doing, and just get a lot of those tools working in there. But also, Photoshop is $20 a month, and Nuke is $8,000 a year, so I don't expect that much, but it would be nice. I'm just going to get these smart objects this lined up. Which painting angle is the hardest for you? There's this one angle that people love to put in their movies or commercials that is just the absolute worst. And it's when it's like a crane, when they film with a crane, when it's looking down a crane shot where they're usually 20 to 30 feet up. because there's no photo elements or photo reference that you can't take pictures from that height unless you have a crane. Like it's too small to get elements, or it's too low to get elements from like rooftops, and it's too tall to get elements from like walking down the street. So that like 20-foot to 30-foot range is just like this dead zone where you'll never find any photo elements. And it comes up so often too. It's always, every time I see it, I'm just like, God damn it. So I would say for me, that's the hardest, just because of a lack of elements and because it's impossible to go and film that stuff unless I like maybe had a drone or something that I was going out with, which several times in the middle of those paintings, I've like considered like, crap, I should just buy a drone just to like make this shot easier. Yeah, and then every once in a while you get an angle that you've like never seen before too, or some challenge. A lot of the times you look at a painting, you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be straightforward, and you don't know until you really get into the middle of it when you really start to realize like where the problem areas are. Cool. So between this and this, that'll have it covered. I'm gonna just take a look at what my render pass setup was before. So I'll say, just label these. Front, side. And I can go in here and just kind of copy this, this setup. I guess I didn't really leave it that organized. I should have been a bit more organized with it. But it's enough. It's enough to mimic. And again, this is working pretty fast, but when I'm doing a full-blown map painting and I'm going to spend, a week or more on a painting, I'll make sure, usually at the end of the day, I'll go back and label, just like make sure, clean up my PSD and delete layers I'm not using, and make sure I like name all the layers and get rid of like the little copy stuff. I'm like OCD about it because it actually will, spending a little bit of time on that actually saves me a lot of time when I'm pulling through things and trying to figure out what I did. And now that I have these separated, I can also go in here and just adjust the levels on a per face basis. And I'm gonna get rid of that cool tones, those blues right now, because we're not getting a ton of that in here. And I'll go back later on after I get all the textures in and really like individually tweak colors in different facades. Let's see what my color corrections we're doing here. So that was just getting the shadows in, was painting some highlights, that was patching in the roofs, and that was doing an overall levels adjustment. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna need that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to break up these highlights on this side since we're getting that nice sun hit. And I'll take that stone texture. And I'm going to multiply it on top and then go to blending options and just get just whatever the hottest highlights are here to have those shine through. And then feather that out. That gives it a nice little breakup and adds a little more texture to it. Do you work with 3D scan stuff? I have before. I don't do it a lot. It's something I want to do more, but I just haven't had too many projects where it required it. I did work with some 3D scan stuff on that last Far Cry cinematic we did at Blair. They scanned some like really cool rubble and wreckage, and I got that stuff to kind of set up in 3D and render myself out some elements, and that was really cool. And ended up working out really great and saved me a ton of time. But I need to dive more into the 3D scans for sure. That's definitely on my list of things I want to play with. Cool. Just gonna paint in a little bit more of the lighting here. Do you find it's a touch to give epic height with do you find it's tough to give epic height with 235 framing? I don't think so. I've seen people create epic paintings regardless of the aspect ratio. For me, I prefer 2:1 aspect ratio, but that's just because I'm OCD like that, and I like those even numbers and having a canvas perfectly split in half. But at the same time, when you're working on projects, you don't always get to choose what the aspect ratio is. Actually, very rarely do you get to say, hey, I want to work at like this. They usually determine that for you. But I think the aspect ratio doesn't really do that much. It just comes down to maybe if it's a tough aspect ratio, you have to be a bit more creative with your composition. But for me, I find that quote unquote epic feeling, a lot of that comes from composition, lighting, and the scale that you give to an image. If right now this scale isn't massive, because you can see how big the windows are, and that's kind of the indicator. If the windows were, let's say the windows were half that height, and that starts to give a lot more of an epic, like makes the castle feel bigger, just by reducing the size of the indicators of what people are, and then if you had like a little person up here to further show the scale, maybe you have like a little guard or something here. That it's different ways that you can approach giving epic scale to things. In which color space do you generally receive your plates to work in Photoshop? It changes project by project, but if I have my preference is to get everything in linear, and to have it pre-graded, usually like a neutral grade. That's when I'm happiest. But you usually don't get to make those calls. That's usually up to the client and how the studio that you're working for, what their workflow is. Just lighten up these little rooftops. We'll move on. Eventually, would you think about doing a class for bringing this into Nuke for projections and small camera moves? Uh, Not eventually. That's what my current plan is. Um, yeah, that's something that I want to do and that I'm working on. Um, but I get asked about that class quite a bit. The the truth is these classes take me a long time to make. Um, I think all the Learn Squared teachers spend a good amount of time on it because you only get 4 lessons. You really want to jam pack those lessons in, and for me, I want to say everything I want to say about nuke projections and put like a period at the end of it so that it's one resource that you can go back to over and over again, and hopefully it's one of those things where it's so much information that you got to watch the class like 2 or 3 times to get it all. That's always my goal because I want to give as much as possible in those classes, and the trade-off for that is it takes me a long ass time to make something like that. The intro class took me around 4 months to make, and this one's a bit more complicated because there's a lot more that I want to include. So I'll keep you guys posted with it, but know that like I am working on it, and I totally hear the need and the want for nuke and 3D and advanced map painting stuff. Hey Max, do you ever do any other aspect ratios? Vertical, square, or do you stick with mostly film ratios? I'm referring to personal work. For me, I like horizontal canvases, but I think a good chunk of that is just because I've spent so long doing matte paintings for film that the way I think about composition is like that. Like that's just how my taste and my compositional like tendencies happen to be. I've done a couple vertical paintings. I don't really like squares, but that's just, in terms of personal work. But if a client wants something, I'll always oblige to that. Cool. Max, would you be doing any paintovers today? I'm not going to do paintovers today. I put it up on social media to see what you guys wanted, to see if you guys wanted to do some portfolio reviews or, look at other people's art or, what you wanted to do, and pretty much unanimously responded with work on the castle. So that's what I'm going to do today. But I'll keep posting these questions each week before the stream to see what you guys want to see. And if you guys want me to do another paintover day, and there's enough of you asking for it, then I'll open that up. I love doing paintovers on the stream. I think it's a super cool way for me to get to know you guys and your artwork and where you guys are all at. Besides getting to kind of just do the fun part of a painting where it's like I have some distance. I didn't have to put in all the hard work to get it to the place that you guys get it to, and I can just be critical. Like that's pretty nice and pretty fun. So yeah, if that's something you guys want, just when I post for the stream and when I ask what you guys want, just keep voting for that one, and I'll do that. Why don't you apply this texture directly inside of Keyshot? The reason why I don't apply it directly in Keyshot is because Keyshot is going to force me to do some tileables. I have UVs, but I don't want to spend the time UVing. Really what I want to do is I just want to grab different pieces of different photos and be able to quickly adjust it. And that's why I use photo textures here. And also I'm laying a base right now. So once I have like these textures in, I have a lot more control in Photoshop if I want to paint highlights directly on them, or move a stone somewhere, or adjust the scale, or like all these different things that 3D, it would take a lot longer to do. That's why, in Keyshot, I'm in and out in like less than an hour, and I'd rather spend the time here when I'm putting the painting together, just because of the amount of control I have. And if I see something that I want to change, it's so easy to pull out a brush and do it right on the angle that we're looking at. In how many years matte painting will not be longer needed because of 3D? What do you think? Yeah, it's definitely it's hard because 3D is becoming such a powerful tool. I mean, it's always been a powerful tool, but it's just getting easier and quicker. And that was one of the big things that matte painting always had, was it was just so fast, and it was way faster to do things than matte painting. But right now, what's happening is it's really fast for 3D to get to the 90% mark, and it takes forever to get that last 10% in 3D. And it's a lot faster for a matte painter to go and take it there. And I don't know if that's gonna go away. And it might, but then it also becomes about what else does a matte painter bring to the table. And what I believe is if you're matte painting a lot, what you're doing is you're training your eye for all the non-technical stuff as well, right? How to create an epic shot, or an establishing shot, or an environment that tells a story. And if you do that using 3D tools, or if you do that straight up hand painting, it doesn't much matter. It's really, I believe matte painting is just about creating those worlds. So I wouldn't say that 3D is going to negate matte painting. It's just another tool that I think might make matte painting more accessible to some people, and also give matte painters more power to continue to do that. But I know a ton of matte painters who are learning all these 3D tools just as fast as these 3D artists, or 3D artists who are transitioning into matte painting because they want to get that last 10%, and they see the matte painting tools as being able to get there. Did you sharpen the mountains? I did sharpen the mountains just to make it easier to work with the sharp castle render right now. But I'm gonna remove that afterwards and mess up the castle render a bit to match the photo more. Add the grain, the chromatic aberration, and all that stuff. But for now, I just sharpened it just to help with these like transition areas. Do you have a checklist or rules you use for coming up with the best composition and placement of objects in your scene? Yeah, I do. It's not a checklist, but there are rules. And when I say there's rules, it's more of there's cause and effect. Like, I don't like the idea of saying there's rules, because traditional composition rules can constantly be broken if they're broken for the right reason. It's understanding the language of composition, and it's little things like, it's not even little things actually, and I talk about this a good amount in my actual in the intro to matte painting course, but the difference between putting your horizon line down here or up here has a massive effect on the mood of the scene, right? Like and also where you put your character, right? Having a character down here looking up at this castle is a lot different than having a character up here looking down at it. And it's all storytelling, right? Down here, it's intimidating. He's powerless against this massive castle. Up here, he's above it and conquering it, or however you want to play that. But this puts him at a position of power over here, versus this is a position of weakness over here. And it's things like that that inform your composition, about understanding the story behind it. When you have something symmetrical, that creates this feeling of order. And if you have something asymmetrical and not in the rule of thirds, that creates like disorder, or things like that. So there's a lot of rules, but I would say it's more like cause and effect. And there's no checklist. It's more about being deliberate about your decisions, understanding the story that you're trying to tell, and from there inferring where to place things and how to move the eye around the canvas to tell your like beginning, middle, and end. This was one of those things I was hoping to be able to go ahead and texture all this, since you guys have kind of seen this process the last time we touched this mountain. I was hoping to be able to go and texture these on my own and just record a time lapse for you guys. But the last 2 weeks have been absolutely nuts with work, so I apologize for not being able to do that. But we'll make big leeway and get that done today. It's going to be we're kind of plowing through it pretty fast, anyways. And it only speeds up, now that we have the texture that we're going to throw on this thing. We're going to do the roofs as a different texture, but like the rest, we're really just trying to get this stone texture in and pop it a bit too. We're trying to pop this texture, get that stone feeling, make it feel a little more like three-dimensional. Let me see, where is this? The tower. Boom, right there. Doing little things like getting this texture back on top of it, blending out anything except for the deep cut shadows, and multiplying it just to give it a little more like bump, I guess it would be. Feathering that off and then just toning down the opacity. And like it might look a little messy now, but that's, because we have this in Photoshop, we can actually go and paint right on here if we want to pump a highlight up a bit more. We have that. We have this in here to do that. What's up, Sava? Sorry, I just looked up. I haven't been looking at the chat that much other than the questions window. And as soon as I looked up, that beautiful man Sava appeared. That's all the detail stuff we can get into later. Like just punching up like these highlights on these rims and things like that. Like, because we're in Photoshop and not trying to do all this in 3D, we have that ability. Or if we just wanted to like make certain areas darker, that's the advantage of painting this stuff rather than trying to do everything in one render. Okay, now we'll get to these towers. if you guys missed it, I mentioned it early in the stream. Maybe a bunch of you weren't here yet. When we get a little further in, like maybe in like 15 minutes or something, I have like a sneak peek to share with you guys. And since you guys are watching this stream, I want you guys to be the first ones to see it. This little project I've been working on for the last couple months, and I'm excited to share it with you guys and see what you guys think. Now this is wrapping around right now, which we could wrap this texture as well. I don't know if we're going to, because it might be easier to just paint around it. But if we wanted to, we could do something like this, using just the warp tool, and like bring this stuff out to get a little curvature. Just creating kind of a fake fake sphere. It looks kind of lopsided right now, but that'll do. Something like that. Wow, that really fucked up that texture. What the crap, Photoshop? That is not at all what it's supposed to look like. Okay, Photoshop, you win this time. I'll just do this. Really? Warp can't do anything with this? Oh well. That's crazy. Let's just see how that works. Oh yeah, I built mats for this. That's how we'll do it. Boom, shrink that in. The work you're going to show us, is there no NDA? There is no NDA. No, it's something, it's my own thing that I've been working on. I'm wondering, could you use the same geo for projections in Nuke, or would you make a more simplified version? I'd probably make a more simplified version, just to speed things up, because I think Nuke would chug a little bit with this much geo. The models are pretty heavy. That's how we get a lot of these nice details. But they're also pretty simple. Like what I would do is really, especially now that I have these all in layers, I would create like cubes for like the towers, cube for the wall. Maybe some triangles for the rooftops, and just like cylinders and little cones for the, I would make like geometry that's less than 1,000 polys for the whole thing. And that would be good. Big Papa Ash isn't here to say no. How does your usual workday look like? How do you manage your day-to-day? It's a good question. I'm pretty militant about my schedule. This is it's something, I work from home, but I have to say I attempted to work from home like 3 times in my career before I finally was able to pull it off. And it wasn't that I couldn't get work from home or like that studios wouldn't let me. It's that I would work for, I don't know, let's say a month. Okay, it started out with like a month. And by the end of that month, I was so like, I felt like I had been in a remote third world, like I was so senile and insane from not having seen anyone in that time. Like I was losing my mind, literally losing my mind from just being cooped up at home, and on top of that, you know, the idea of working from home is like very romantic, but the truth is if you don't do it right, it usually turns into feeling like you're living at work. Like when you're sitting on the couch on a Sunday and you just want to like play a video game or something, but you have a computer in the next room, and you could be working and you have work to do, it's really easy to just never stop. And so I would burn myself out so hard and lose my mind. And so, you know, I made many attempts to work from home. And the last time I realized that the only way I was really going to pull it off is to master, like to be very disciplined about it and to set a set schedule of when I'm in the office and when I'm not. And even if the office is just the next room over. So for me, my work schedule is very specific because of that, because it keeps me sane. I wake up like at 7 or 8 in the morning. I'm at my computer, just like a cup of coffee, but then at the computer and taking care of all the emails, all the pressing emails for the day. I try to get that out of the way first, because I feel like I can usually knock out most of my to-do list in just a couple hours, because most of it is just like respond to this email. And once I get all that done, like I feel a lot like a huge weight off my shoulder, like I can focus on creative. But before I do that, I go to the gym, like feel like I get like a mental switch when I'm going between like business and art. So I go to the gym, come back, start painting, and then I usually paint and do work until like 3 or 4, have my like afternoon meetings, and I'm done at 7. And that's just my normal day. And then after 7, I try to get out of the house. You know, especially if I've been here all day, I want to go see, you know, have dinner with friends or something like that, so that I can, you know, get away from the office. So that's my normal work day. Let's just get the mix going, and then we'll see where we're at with it and see what we need to do. So if I flip this on and off, you can see we've kind of gotten rid of all the tileable textures, added in those stone textures. But right now the stone is just a little too soft, especially if it's that small. So I'll bump it up by just taking off my diffuse layers. And then what I'll want to do is just add a little bit more. Let me see if we need to pump that up. No, I'll just paint it, add a little bit more shape to it. So really what I want to do is get that kind of sky glow on it, and kind of get it a little darker as we go down. And maybe if an area is getting a little too dark, we'll just cheat it and pump it up a little bit. Max, would be kind of cool to hear about your conceptual process and thinking. For professional work, you get a brief, but what is pushing you on personal work? How are you thinking about creating a cinematic expression in your paintings? Not only aesthetically, but emotion, time, and putting viewer in the space of the environment. Wow, that's a really good question. I wish I had like an elegant answer on the top of my head for that, but yeah, I don't know. I think that like getting inspiration is when you're working full time as an artist. I feel like part of your job is to stay inspired. Like you need that. So like I spend a lot of time trying to get inspired and looking at artwork that gets me excited about doing it. And a lot of the times I'm trying to look outside of the industry. For me, like I love contemporary art and modern art and it's the opposite of what I do, but I try to bring that into what I'm playing with. Because you have artists who are able to capture an emotion and to really like capture you without all of this detail, right? They're able to do it with just lines or just colors. And when I see that stuff, it makes me go, okay, how do I bring that into my painting world? And like subject matter is one thing, but really what I'm trying to do is like play with line, color, and composition in my personal work. To create, I don't know, whatever emotion I'm going for, whether it's just a feeling of awe or a feeling of discomfort or disconnection or, whatever it is. That's what I'm aiming for when I do my stuff. But it's, I don't know, it's a tough thing. Being an artist is a tough thing in general because, it's filled with self-doubt and, constantly feeling like you're not good enough or that you don't have anything to say. And I'm always trying to, I don't know, figure out if I do have something to say with it. So, yeah, I don't really have like a great answer for that other than it's just a constant struggle with personal artwork, and what I'm trying to do is always be feeding myself with inspiration. How do you work with linear files knowing that PS is not a linear software? Oh man, I'm not even gonna touch that one because most of color science is just jargon words to me. I don't begin to understand it. I know how to work with it in a pipeline in a studio, in a studio setting, but I am in no way qualified to actually have an in-depth conversation about it. I have a good friend of mine, who's an amazing colorist who does most of the Marvel films and stuff like that. And he's tried explaining this stuff to me endless times. And every time he does, there's so many jargon words in there that part of me thinks maybe he doesn't understand. He does, but like I'm always like, are you just throwing jargon words out there? I guess Photoshop is like a sRGB program, and our monitors aren't showing things at linear. I have no clue. It's just what I prefer when I'm getting plates is linear neutral graded, just because I can actually not deal with LUTs in Photoshop, and I can work on something that has proper contrast. and not have like a log file where I'm like messing with log to lin LUTs in Photoshop that are half broken and I don't know what the compositor is seeing on their end. What I've noticed is just with linear, it's a lot easier to do the back and forth for me. That's just what I prefer. Which studios have been cool with you working from home? Well, I'm not going to list off all my clients, but I will say there have been, at this point, there's very few of the studios I've worked for in the past who are not okay with me working from home now. But I've also spent a lot of time working in studios and building that trust up with them. And they know that I'm going to deliver, and that I'm going to deliver on time, and that the stuff's going to look good and all of that. Like most of my clients I've worked in-house for. Some of them I haven't, but like they know this at this point. And what I will say on this though is if you're wondering how to make that jump, if you're like, I really want to work from home, how do I do that? Besides like emotionally how you need to be prepared for it, like which I really cannot emphasize enough, the psychological toll it can take if you're not ready for it. But what I would say is like make sure you have a solid relationship with your clients. Like first and foremost, like there has to be a lot of trust there. And that you have enough freelance clients to keep you going. And then after that, don't take jobs that require you to be in the studio. Just don't take them. Say no to anything that requires you to be in the studio. And if you do that, then the only ones that will be left standing are the ones that are okay with you working remotely. And if you don't have the freelance network to be able to say no to 10 jobs who want you in-house and wait off for the one that will let you work remotely, then you're not ready for it. That's kind of, I know it's a pretty simplified way of looking at it, but that's honestly what I believe is like, if you don't have enough clients who trust you to say yes, then you're not ready to break away from the studio system yet, and you got to put in a little bit more time. For me, when I took the jump to work from home, besides the fact that I had already worked for 30 studios in-house, I had spent a long time cultivating those freelance relationships. And it doesn't happen overnight. It took me years and years and years. And I was fortunate enough to have enough people wanting to work with me that I could kind of set my conditions. So that's kind of my advice. If you're looking to work from home and you don't know how to make that happen, that's kind of the step-by-step is, put in the time, build those relationships, build that trust up, make sure you have a giant freelance network, and then when you really want to do it, just do it, and don't take anything other than the jobs that are under your terms. And I think that kind of goes with everything too. When I was starting out in the industry, like my first year or two, I was struggling a lot to get work, right? Like I always say that the first 3 years are the hardest years of your career, and you just have to make it past that third year mark. And for most people, it'll get a lot better after that point. But I was willing to take any and all jobs, anything to like just cover rent or put food on the table or whatever, and really, like what ended up happening is I started to get a lot of calls. Like most of my calls was for me to do 3D generalist work, like to be a modeler or a texture artist or just a 3D generalist in general. And all I wanted to do was matte painting, but I kept taking those other jobs just because I needed work. And I realized at a certain point that the only way that I was only going to get matte painting calls is if I didn't take anything other than matte painting jobs. And it's a giant leap of faith, and it's super hard to do, especially when you're starting out, to say no to any project that is that is not what you want to be doing. But it's that leap of faith that's kind of required to actually get you where you want to be. So you have to be brave, and you have to just be very clear on what you want, and make that leap of faith and take that sacrifice. And once you've done that sacrifice, you'll see that the jobs that come your way start to fit more in your picture, because you won't look or listen to anything other than that. How do you get a job if you're on location without any studios around? It's a tough thing. I've been very blessed in my life that I was born and raised in Los Angeles. That's an advantage that I'm fully aware of, and it is tough if you're somewhere that doesn't have an industry, or somewhere that requires a visa or makes getting a visa difficult. That's a whole other challenge, and I think that there's only one thing that you can do, and that's just do such excellent work that you stand out from the pack. There's nothing else in your control other than doing such brilliant work that studios have no choice but to call you. And so if that's the position you find yourself in, just keep working hard, and make sure that your portfolio says it all, and that studios don't care where you are. They just need what you have to offer. And I would say too, with studio work, I think a lot of people, they very rarely stop to think of things from a studio's perspective, right? A lot of people are like, I just want to work for the studio. I just want to work for the studio. And then they email that studio like, I just want to work for you. I just want to work for you. Or just like, give me a job, give me a job, give me a job. And I feel like you can go so much further with that. If that's what you really want, you want a job at that studio. If you just take a little bit of time to think of things from the studio's perspective, and go, what is the studio looking for? And if I owned a studio, what would I want to get? What would I want to hear in an email? Something as simple as what would I want to hear in an email if I owned a studio? And for me personally, what I would want to hear is something like, rather than, here's my portfolio, here's my work, it's more, I love the work that you guys do, and I would love to be a part of it. What you do inspires me, and I want to be a part of that. What do I need to do so that I can join your team? Right? That's you're giving them a huge compliment, which everyone loves to get a compliment. And then on top of that, rather than saying, here's my portfolio, you're asking the question, and you're giving an opportunity for them to tell you what they're looking for. Or to say hey, what is it that you're looking for right now? Because I'm dedicated to being a part of what you guys are doing. Stuff like that. And as a studio owner, to get an email like that, how could you not pay attention to that person? How many projects per month are you working on? It changes every month. Yeah, sometimes they're long projects and sometimes they're short ones. It's always changing. Usually a couple per month. But yeah, it's kind of a tough question to answer. Yeah, if it's a giant project or a huge painting that I have to do, then I'll focus on one that month. But usually I have a couple things going up in parallel. And I think that's pretty normal for artists to, I think, to have multiple projects in the fire at once, as long as they always deliver. As soon as you don't deliver, you should not have been juggling projects. As soon as, and like really more than that, if your client ever feels like they're getting the short end of the stick with you, like if they feel like they're not getting your full attention, then like you should not be juggling projects. Because the most important thing is for each one of your clients to feel like you have their back and you're taking care of them. The last thing they ever want to feel like is that they're getting the crumbs of your time. So, I mean, be careful of juggling projects. It's not worth it to lose a client to get a couple extra bucks for juggling a couple projects. It's never worth it. This whole industry is all about the long game, and clients are incredibly valuable. You know, if you have a great client who treats you well, pays you well, you both enjoy working with each other, then you know, the goal for me is always to have a client for life, and you know, for them to always, for me to be their first thought whenever they have a project come in. I want them to always think of me first, and you know, that happens by making each one of them feel like they have my undivided attention. This is pretty mindless stuff, honestly. It's like copy paste, but I'm just trying to like lay in the groundwork, and this is all the stuff that I do to get the base in before I can really start going to town on all of it, and painting details and cleaning up little things and stuff like that. But I at least wanted to push the castle ball forward a little bit before you know, before it just dies. And it looks like we're at 11:05. So what I'm gonna do, we got all the wall textures in. Next time the roofs will be super fast, and then we can actually start like doing some detail paintings and you know, doing some of the beauty stuff. The more, for me, the more fun stuff. But we just needed to get this groundwork laid. What I want to do though is before I have to run, share with you guys a little sneak peek of what I've been working on, and something that I have coming out. And I wanted you guys to be the first ones to see it, since you guys are tuning in for the stream and all of that. And I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. It's something pretty personal, just because I've just put so much into it, and I'm working with just an amazing group of people to make this happen. So yeah, anyways, I'll play the trailer. And you know what? Let me turn desktop audio on so that you guys can hear me. Awesome, guys. Yeah, I've been working on this online store with some really great people, and we'll be coming out and launching next week. So yeah, it's terrifying when you've been working so hard on something, but this is something that I really saw a need for. There's like really great kits out there in the market, but for me, architecturally speaking, and for map painting and concept art, there wasn't anything that really fit my need and how I work. And so finally, it was like, let's just pull the trigger and make this happen and build out a ton of kits. So we'll be launching with 4 kits, but then we'll have new kits coming out every single month. We have like really great themes planned out and great modelers. And yeah, so that's been one of my big projects, and I'm excited to get to share it with you guys first. And I'll be sharing a lot more with it in the next couple weeks. But for now, I just wanted to give you guys the first look for it. And yeah, let's get Bash 3D. Anyways, with that, I'm going to leave y'all. And thank you for tuning into the stream. And I will see you guys next week. Oh, also, sorry, I'll answer any questions you guys have on Kit Bash. But yeah, they'll work for any 3D software. They'll come in Maya files, FBXs, and OBJs. Yeah, actually, you know what we'll do, just to make it easier, is since we're going to be announcing next week and there's going to be a lot more information, next Tuesday, if you guys have any questions about Kit Bash or anything like that, I'll answer any of your questions on the next stream. Cool. With that, I'll leave you guys, and thank you guys for tuning in and for asking awesome questions and for chatting with me, and have an amazing Tuesday.